This is a video about how to draw the parts of a landscape. The first thing you want to always draw is the horizon line. So I'm going to find a spot about 2/3 up the page, and I'm going to draw a mostly straight line, and then I'm going to label it horizon line. So the horizon line is the line that separates the sky from the land. So anytime you're drawing a landscape, you should always have a line or an edge of a mountain or an edge of a tree, something that separates the sky from the land. You don't want it to just kind of be a blurry haze. Okay, next we're going to label the parts of the picture. So the area that is down at the bottom and closer to us is called the foreground. So I'm going to draw just kind of some hills to show that this is the foreground. And I'll draw a hill to show that this is the middle ground. And then the area higher and closer to the horizon line is the background. That's far away. So go ahead and write these down. The background is what's far away, the middle ground is in the middle, and the foreground is what's closer to us. And you can tell where things are by where the base of them is. We're going to start by drawing some mountains in the distance, and so since they are sitting on the horizon line, we know that they're in the background. The bottom of them is way up here. And let me do a what not to do really quickly. So say this is your horizon line. How many of you like to draw your mountains like this? I like to call these Dorito mountains. So what's wrong with this? One is you would never see perfectly straight mountain edges like this. They're always a little bumpy. Another is that mountains are all different sizes, right? These are all the same size. And a last thing is mountains overlap with each other, right? Like there's one in front of the other, whereas these ones are all next to each other. So this is what you do not want to do. What you do want to do is start by drawing the foothills, the area that's closest to us. So I'm just going to kind of do a really bumpy line kind of like that. And then you're going to draw kind of like the lower mountains that are still really long and flat. Think about if you were driving down I-25, you would never see a huge mountain going up into the sky. The mountains actually aren't that high above the horizon line when you're looking at them from a distance. Okay, so now that I've got some foothills and some smaller mountains, I'm going to draw the peaks, just kind of peeking out. Maybe there should be one in front of that one, in front of the foothills. Okay, so this is like Long's Peak, for example. And then if we were drawing Horsetooth, which is right next to Fort Collins, that would be way right down here in the foothills. Okay. If we were going to shade these mountains to make them look 3D, you always want to shade the bottom to the top, because if the sun were up here shining down, it would hit the top first, and so that would be lighter and the bottom would be darker. So I'm going to use the side of my pencil, and for each individual mountain I'm going to shade the bottom darker and have the top lighter, just like this. Now we are going to add some stuff on the land. So first I want to teach you how to draw a tree. So let's draw a really big tree that is close to us. So before you actually draw it, you're going to put a line where you want the base of the tree to be. and then maybe a little dot where you want the top of the tree. Since this is really low on the page, that means it's really close to us, so we're going to draw it really big and have it go all the way into the sky. Next, you're going to draw a line that goes all the way from the top to the bottom. And then you're going to find about the halfway point on that line. Okay? And what I'm going to show you how to draw right now is a tree with no leaves. And how many of you draw trees that look like this? Generally. All of you, probably. Yeah, this is like the generic way to do a tree. And maybe some trees kind of look like this, but I'm going to show you how to draw a tree with the branches first, and then you add leaves on top of that, and it looks a little more realistic. So this is just a very beginner tree. Again, this is like there's lots of different types of trees, and they all have different proportions, but this is just a very generic way to start drawing trees. Okay, so you find the halfway point on that line. And what we're planning right now is the top half is going to be the branches and the bottom half is going to be the trunk. And first you're going to do your two big main branches. So I'm going to look at the length of this half and I'm going to draw another branch that's about the same, kind of like this. And then I'm going to do the same thing again over on this side. I'm going to offset this just a little bit and put another big main branch there. Now I'm going to go about this in kind of a geometric way, or mathematical is maybe a better way to say it, and I'm going to find the halfway point of this line, and then I'm going to do a line that's the same length as the top half. Same thing on this one. I'm going to find that halfway point and draw another line that's about the same as that half, and same thing on this one. And then I'm going to do the same thing one more time for the little tiny branches. I'm finding the halfway point on that branch and drawing a little line that's the same length as the top half. Okay, so now we've got a start to a tree. And then I'm going to go back and add some more branches, just wherever you think it'll look nice. Like maybe right there. Maybe here, maybe there's a small one down there, maybe one there. So this is just a really basic way to start drawing a tree. Now that we've got the outlines on there, we're going to thicken parts of it. So look at that first main line you drew. On the bottom half, you're going to taper it so that it's like almost like a long skinny triangle, so that the top stays really thin, but it slowly gets wider as it goes towards the bottom. And then you're going to do the same thing on the two main branches. So this branch, I'm going to just thicken it at the base a little bit. And this one right here, same thing, I'm going to thicken it at the base. Okay? All three branches together shouldn't be any thicker than the trunk when you add them together. So like actually I need to make my trunk a little bit wider, because my branches got thick. And that's a good way to draw trees. Now we want to show that there's depth to the landscape. So we want to put some other stuff in here. Let's do a few more trees maybe. So if I were to put a tree here and put a tree here, which one is taller? And what I mean by that is this is the bottom of the tree. So if the bottom of the tree is here, it's further away than this tree, so it shouldn't be taller than this tree. It should be a little shorter. So maybe I'll have the top be there. Maybe this tree will be this tall. And this tree's really far away, right? The bottom is way towards the mountains. So this one I'm just going to have be pretty short. Okay? So you can just do, you don't have to draw very detailed branches, but you can just kind of do something to show the tree. Okay. The other way to show distance, other than paying attention to size, is overlapping. So overlapping is when two things are so close that one is in front of the other. So let's try drawing maybe two trees here and here. I'm going to draw pine trees. Okay. Which one is closer? Hopefully you decided on this one. So the bottom of this pine tree is closer, so that means this one is going to be in the front. So a good way to start drawing pine trees is to put a dot for where the top is. And what I paid attention to, this tree is even a little closer than this one, but I know usually like the pine trees I want to draw are shorter than ones. But anyway, I'm thinking about two trees that are kind of right next to each other. So I'm looking at these sizes and what would make sense together. Then I'm just going to kind of draw bumpy edges like this. And then pine trees, you don't want them to be too perfect. Like they're more interesting when they're not like, you know, a perfect triangle, when the bumpy edges are kind of funky looking. And then I'm going to erase this because this tree is in front of that tree, so we can't see the bottom of this other tree. It's just behind there. And then usually I just kind of draw some like squiggly lines to show some of the branches. Okay, that does look kind of weird. I'll do that. Now I'm going to do this other tree that goes from here to here, even though it's behind. So I'm going to do a little dot for the top, and then my squiggly lines again. Okay, and now we can tell because this tree's lower, it's in front and it overlaps in front of that tree. Another way to show distance is by drawing something like a fence or a river or a road. And even though we know that in real life those are parallel, like for example, a road, you know, in our brains is straight like this, right? What you don't want to do is draw it straight to the horizon line like that. Because if you think about it, things that are far away are really tiny. So even though our brain knows that the edges of the road are parallel the whole way, we want to draw the illusion that they get farther away. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is draw a river, I think. And a river, since I already have some hills drawn, is always at the lowest point between two hills. So I'm going to kind of draw my river coming this way. All right, so I'm going to put a dot on the horizon line where it disappears, because a river would you'd never be able to see a river in the mountains because it would be down in canyons, and it would be so small you wouldn't be able to see it unless it were like the Mississippi. So I'm going to just kind of draw a river that comes over this way like this. I'm going to draw one line first, and then I'm going to draw another parallel line that goes the edges go the same, go parallel to the first line I drew, and slowly they get bigger and bigger. Maybe I'll move this hill over here. Make sure you don't put your tree in the middle of your river. That's what I almost did. Okay, and then if you had to move some hills around, go ahead and erase any of the lines that you don't need anymore. Okay, so see how my lines are parallel, kind of, and they slowly, like they follow each other, and they slowly get wider and wider as the river gets closer to me. So you would do a road the same way. But you still would make it winding, because it's rare that roads ever go in a perfectly straight line. Usually they kind of move around things. Okay? If you were going to draw a fence next to this river, you would do a similar thing where you would first draw, actually first let's draw the posts. What people do a lot of times is when you have like a river going like this, they'll start doing the posts up, but then as the river turns, they'll start laying their posts down sideways. And that's what you don't want to do. You want your posts of your fence to always stay vertical. Okay, so if I were going to have a fence like here, maybe, it's further away, right? So I'm paying attention to what the bottom is, so I want it to be, you know, in relation to this tree. So if my tree is this big, my fence is going to be about that big. And then all your posts stay vertical, even if they have to go in front of something. So see how they stayed vertical and they just overlapped with this edge of the river? This is the river edge. Okay, then you would go back and draw in the horizontal beams. And it kind of overlaps with the river. That's kind of hard to see, isn't it? And this gives the illusion of depth, right? It makes it seem like, even though this is just a piece of paper, it makes it seem like we're looking into something that's far away. Another thing you might want to draw is grass and flowers. And if you think about looking at a landscape, can you see big details on flowers back here? No. If the tree's this size, the flowers would be like, you know, super tiny. Like, can you even see what I just drew? If flowers were here, they might be, flowers and grass might be this long. And if they were here, they might be, I don't know, something like this. Okay? So you always look at comparing the sizes of where the base of the thing is. And so if I were doing these, I draw the grass blades. Notice how I'm making sure they all stand vertical. Similar to fence posts, people a lot of times want to start doing grass sideways like this, but it should always stay vertical. And I like to do grass kind of near the edges of things. I feel like it looks nice, like near the edges of the river. Maybe we could add some cattails into those, maybe over here, and by the edges of trees. I think it looks nice. It just kind of like frames it a little bit. Maybe I'll put some on this this foreground over here. Okay, and then if I were going to draw flowers, they would just kind of be floating in the grass like this. And flowers are all different shapes. You know, usually we think of flowers as being always like this, okay? But that's if you're looking down on a flower straight from the top. You know, lots of times flowers can be like, you know, maybe a petal here, you know, looking different from the side. Or you could have like a bell-shaped flower like bluebells. So instead of just drawing a generic flower out of your head, think about specific flowers. All right, a few other things. If we were drawing a river, probably you'd see some rocks. And to draw a rock, generally it's easiest to just kind of draw a straight line and then a bumpy top. And then kind of make them all different shapes. And of course, ones that are closer to us are bigger, and ones that are further away are smaller. Maybe I should make this one bigger and maybe overlapping with another one. And then over here, they'd start getting small. If I were going to do cattails, I would just do sort of a brown oval shape, kind of on top of some taller grass. Kind of like that. And then back here, if I were going to spend time, I would just start putting lots of trees probably back here and back here just to fill it out more. For the sky, what's in the sky? Generally the sun, maybe some clouds. I'd like you to think about, when is it that you see the sun? How many of you draw a nice corner sun like this? A lot of you. This is what they teach you in elementary school, right? When do you ever see lines coming off of the sun? Almost never. So what I would like you guys to do, if you are drawing the sun, it should just be a circle. And then the sun is actually white, because it's the presence of all light, which is white, not yellow. Unless, like right now, there's smoke in front of it. When would the sun be at this spot in the sky? Normally the sun would be like over our heads, so it wouldn't even be in the drawing, right? Throughout the day. The only times you would see the sun is if it is morning or evening time and it's either rising or setting. So if you have a sun and it's at this spot in the sky, you should be doing like probably morning or evening colors in the sky. If you're doing a blue sky with daytime colors, you wouldn't even show the sun. A lot of people ask how to do clouds, and I like to draw my example sheep clouds. Do you guys draw your clouds like this in the sky? I like to give them like a little sheep's head and legs. So there's all different types of clouds, right? But if you're thinking of those big fluffy white clouds, like the cumulus, maybe, is that what they're called? Generally, if you're looking at them from the side, they have a flat base, okay? So you're gonna draw a flat line, and then just kind of bumps that are larger in the middle and kind of fade out as it goes towards the edge. And then I don't even connect my lines all the time. And then usually there's a few kind of near each other. Okay. So if you would like to learn how to draw anything else in your landscape, contact me directly. Otherwise, hopefully this will give you a good start.